They really haven't come yet. When my female upperclassman said that, I agreed with a sigh. No sign of them at all. I've been stuck with all the work since I was a first year because of them. Whenever we were working in the student council room, the two boys were missing. Kuse-senpai was never around, and we didn't see the other male upperclassmen very often either. At present, the student council was essentially run by three people. Things are going to be tough for you in the coming year too. I'll just tell myself that it's a challenge worth overcoming. The upperclassman smiled at my rephrasing, flashing her white teeth. Really? You're such a good girl, Sayaka-chan. Sayaka-chan. I would get used to it little by little, I thought. Then, eventually, it would become so natural that I wouldn't feel a thing. Humans are creatures of convenience. Come to think of it, is Tuko taking today off? For some reason, she didn't add a chan to Nanami Tuko's name, though I did have a feeling as to why. She had something to do, but she said she would come as soon as it was over. Leaving behind that message, Nanami Tuko had quickly left the classroom. Since she wasn't involved in any clubs except student council, I wondered what other business she had at school. I'd been mulling it over since getting to the student council room, but I couldn't think of many possibilities. The clouds spread throughout the sky, like white-capped waves, and the sun was dim, as though it had sunk into the bottom of the ocean. The faint light didn't even come through the large windows of the student council room, though at least it wasn't raining. Despite this weather, the air felt slightly humid, and I could feel on my skin that May was approaching. After a while, Nanami Toko arrived, just as we were wrapping up most of the day's work. Sorry, I'm late, she said, taking a seat next to me. I stood up from my seat as she did so, poured a cup of tea, and handed it to her. Thank you. Did you finish what you needed to do? I did. Nanami Toko's voice seemed a bit sad, which caught my attention at once. She noticed my gaze right away and quickly tried to play it off. It's nothing. All right, if you say so. Maybe it was something she couldn't tell me. Once again, I felt like I could almost see the distance between us. We weren't that busy that day, so there was no work left for Nanami to do by the time she came in late. Once we drank the tea and took a break for a bit, our upperclassman told us we could head home. I look up to. Thank you very much. Nanami Toko bowed her head and left the student council room. Here we go. I followed behind her on my slightly stiff legs. We had finished student council work. In my mind, this was where the biggest challenge began. I had been thinking of telling her that day if she showed up. Now that she had, I couldn't run away. If I fell behind someone else, all I could do was try to catch up. And if other people could do it, I could do it too. I, at least, had that much confidence in myself. Nanami-san, could I have a moment? I called out to Nanami Toko, who had gone outside before me and was standing around. For some reason, she jumped slightly. Is something wrong? She asked. I should ask you the same question. Are you alright? I didn't think that we had the kind of relationship where she would be frightened if I just called out to her. Sorry, it just surprised me because I was spacing out a little. Did you need something? I wanted to talk to you for a moment. Okay. For some reason, Nanami Toko's response was hesitant, as though she were on guard. That worried me, but we would never get to the topic at hand if I kept pressing the subject. So I turned to the bench behind the student council building. The busy scene of the forest spread out in front of the old bench, which was positioned as if leaning back against the student council room. There was so much going on in the scenery that I didn't feel as relaxed as I hoped. We placed our bags between us, setting up a carefully defined distance. So, what is it? A confession? Though I knew it was a joke, I was at loss for words. My vision nearly started to swim. The way you said you wanted to talk just set the kind of mood, that's all. Nanami Tuku was smiling at first, but once she saw my face, her smile faded. I wondered how strange my face must have looked like in that moment. I wanted to know, but I also didn't want to see it. Sorry, was it something serious you wanted to talk about? Following the cue of Nanami Toko's calm voice, the thumping of my heart gradually withdrew. Nature was spread out before my eyes, so I breathed in the fresh air. I'm not sure if it's serious. Well, yeah, I suppose I'm going to say this seriously. Okay, then I'll listen to you seriously. Nanami Toko turned her body towards me, but when she acted that formally about it, it made it all the harder to say. I was sure what I was about to say wasn't that big of a deal at all, but it was just enough to make me sweat slightly. I propped the palm of my hand on the bench and leaned in. Can I call you Toko? The joints on my bent fingers felt warm. Well, sure. Nanami Toko's response was nonchalant. Silence fell, as though she was waiting to hear more. When she realized there was nothing else coming, she tilted her head. Is that it? Yeah, I suppose so. I couldn't deny that I was making a big deal out of it. Still, it was important to me. Then, for some reason, Nanami Toko, slumped over slightly. You were serious? She pressed her fingers together in front of her nose, forming a triangle that covered her mouth, as her shoulders quivered. Is she laughing? Was there something funny about that? I said. No, you didn't say anything strange. It's just that you were so serious about it, Seki-san. That's just the way I am. Despite her explanation, I was embarrassed that Tuko was laughing at me. I couldn't just casually slide something like that into the natural flow of conversation. I grappled with things one at a time. I had always built things up like this, so that was the only way I could do things when it came to Tuko too. It's a good way to be. Thank you. I was glad she hadn't said she liked that about me. I didn't think I would be able to get through the rest of the conversation with a cool head, if she had. Can I call you Sayaka too? Yes, of course. When Tuko said my name so brightly, it felt like the golden light was breaking through the clouds beyond, like something bright and sunny was shining on me, not from the cloudy sky above, but from right beside me. The light seemed to create an illusion of radiance in the corner of my eyes. I suppose sometimes, depending on the circumstances, people see things that aren't actually there. But to me, it was like Tuko was shining light on me. I'm really glad that I invited you to the student council, Sayaka. Thank you. I felt like she had said that in the past too. Since she'd brought up the student council, I ventured a question. Did you join the student council with a specific goal in mind? I doubted just being a member was enough to satisfy her. Toko's eyes shifted, as though she were looking at something far off in the distance. A goal? Yes, I do have a goal. She covered her mouth with her hand, like she had earlier, but this time her shoulders did not move. If I can, I'd like to start working on it this year, but I'm not sure. I guess it depends on the president. Will you tell me what it is? Um, she dragged out her response lightly as she took her bag and stood, and then finally said, I can't talk about it yet. I'll confide in you about it after we formally become officers, okay? Nanami Toko was running away, if only a little. Maybe her feelings about the student council ran deeper than I thought. It might be something she couldn't very well expose to someone she had only finally started calling by her first name that very day. Not knowing something important about the person I cared for made me anxious. But if she said that she would talk to me about it eventually, that would have to be good enough for now. I understand. Then I'll wait for that time to come. When I indicated my intent to abandon the topic, Toko's mouth loosened and quirked up in gratitude. You're so kind, Sayaka. That's not it at all. I don't think you could call my self-centered fear of being hated for overstepping into her personal life kindness. I was scared, so I would wait by the sidelines until she came to me. I wondered when I had gotten so good at waiting, but this was different from junior high. Back then, the choice to wait wasn't even up to me in the first place. It's different, I repeated in the back of my throat, as though I was trying to convince myself. Toko held the straps of her bag as she looked intently into the forest. Toko? Though there were many other ways I could have called out to her, I deliberately called her name. Turning, Toko smiled faintly and told me, It's nothing. I glanced beyond the trees as I passed by, but all I saw was the color of more tree trunks sprawling out beyond. The person I was at that time couldn't find anything else to see, but I would soon find out what Toko had seen there.